although it seems like these two would be a match made in heaven, I don't think they actually work very well together. The first thing I really wanted to talk to you about was supposed to be talking about horror being implemented in survival crafting. Okay. And I was going to talk about that because I played a demo for a game called Project Mist, which is coming out at an undisclosed time. I think it's 2025 is when it's actually coming out.
Sure.
But the demo is available to play. You can play it on Steam if you would like to try it for yourself. I was going to talk about it implemented in that until I played the demo and realized I don't really want to talk about it.
Was it that bad?
I want to couch this in saying that since the game is not out and this is just the demo, I don't know what the final product is going to be, but I can tell you that if it is anything like the demo, I really never want to see this game again. It's just, I'm really sorry. And I will tell you why before I get into the topic at hand, because I think it's important to understand it. So the game starts out, and it's basically giving you this idea that there are almost Cthulhian-like horrors, and the idea behind the game sounds really cool. You know, you're on an open landscape that actually kind of looks a little bit like a Myst-like island, and it's called Project Mist, so this kind of makes sense.
I feel like I might have come across this while I was browsing stuff on Steam recently.
Right. Because the thing that kind of hooked me on it was like, oh, there's like monsters and it almost looks like you know, like eldritch horror kind of stuff. And oh, big monsters. There's all these big monsters around in the world and everything. And that's kind of neat. So I start playing it, and the first thing that they give you is a gravity gun. I'm literally not saying it's like a gravity gun. They literally call it the gravity gun, and I swear it works basically the same as it did in Half-Life 2. It's being able to pick stuff up and shoot stuff at monsters, but just so everybody's aware, shooting them at monsters doesn't seem to do much of freaking anything, so unless it's an explosive barrel or something, don't bother. You mostly use it to, like, break up crates and stuff like that. And then they give you, like, a crossbow and some other things, and you try to shoot the monsters in the head 5 times, or... A lot of the enemies are reliant on having, like, boils on them as, like, the only places where if you hit them in those spots, it does damage, but it doesn't really do damage anywhere else on their body. The interface is not great. I got very lost just trying to get out of the initial cave system. And then when I got into the main world, I tried to take on one of the big monsters. It smacks me around a lot. I'm trying to, like, just aim for the boils. I run out of ammunition. It just kind of stares at me from a distance as I got it onto the rocks, and I was like, I can't fire at you. I'm just gonna go in a different direction. Ultimately, the big problem was that I died once. They tried to load me back into the area. I'm just, like, in free space when they load me back in. It's like, whoa, I guess something happened here. Try a different path. Go into a facility. A bunch of these little monsters come out. I have to kill all of them. I get to an area in the back. You open the little gate. Go in through the gate. There's nothing in there. I end up closing the gate behind me. I now can't reopen the gate. Turns out that the biggest threat that I actually had was that I now trapped myself in a cave that has no other entrance or exit, and I can't open the gate back up, even though I closed myself into the gate. And it was at this point I stopped playing the demo. So that was my experience with Project Mist.
Great. Review over.
Yeah. And also, just, like, while I'm complaining, Single footstep like sound design with like no ambient music or sound going on. I was like, wait, is there audio here? And I was like trying to lift it up, and it's like there's nothing happening, but then when I raise the audio up, like I couldn't still hear much, but then the sound effects are so loud, and I was like, no, gotta turn this back down. Like, I don't know what's going on. Did not leave a great impression. But the notion about this was that it was going to be a survival crafting game that has, stuff that you can build, and all of that good stuff, but that it would have horror elements. And I started to think about this, because I played other games that tried to do similar things. I played 7 Days to Die back in the day, which also was like, oh, it's a zombie horror game, but it's a survival crafting game too. And I didn't really find it all that scary. I think one of the reasons is because, although it seems like these two would be a match made in heaven, I don't think they actually work very well together.
I feel like the issue is that you're trying to do like a survival crafting game, as typical survival crafting build stuff, Ark, Rust, all those other shitty games. But I feel like they're also trying to do it in the same vein as like Resident Evil, where it's like, yes, you have limited ammo.
Right. You can do it one of two ways. You can do it in the way of that, where it's like Resident Evil, you have limited resources, limited stuff, which kind of undermines the whole survival crafting thing where people want to build stuff. Or
stockpile as much ammo as I can, thank you.
Yeah, or you do it as a survival crafting game where I get to build up my big bases and everything, and that kind of undercuts being able to do a horror game, because you have a lot of resources and you can build a lot of things, and you have a lot of stuff available to you at that time.
Did you play The Forest?
I did not play The Forest.
Okay, because that's survival crafting and also a bit of horror, but it's not horror in the same way, I don't think. I think it's horror because it's literally body horror.
It is a lot of body horror, yeah. And I think that's the reason I didn't really want to play it, because it just seemed like, What I ended up doing is I saw The Forest and I saw Green Hell. And I was like, which way, young traveler, will you go? I chose Green Hell because I was interested in the more rigorous survival mechanics that were implemented in that, and the more realistic setting, which does give you a lot of tension and anxiety, and that, I think, works, but doesn't really focus on the horror aspects like The Forest or Sons of the Forest did. And I've heard mixed things about The Forest. I don't know if I'd really like it.
I haven't played it, so... There's
been other games that did it. I feel like Nightingale was kind of flirting with this idea with some of the supernatural stuff, but not really horrific.
Supernatural, but not horror.
Yeah, not really horror.
From all accounts, on all reviews that I've seen when it came out, it was kind of mid.
Yeah. I thought that the aesthetics that they were going with were really interesting for that.
Yeah.
I guess Witchfire was pretty good, though, which has similar aesthetics.
I feel like I'd prefer, if someone's going to do something survival horror, that it wasn't survival crafting.
Yes.
Because a lot of these survival crafting games that come out these days are kind of like cookie-cutter copies of each other at this point.
Yeah. And they encourage you to be able to craft a lot of things. That's kind of like the big deal. And that means you're resource-heavy. And you have plenty of things at your disposal so that you can have the crafting mechanics.
I think, like, one of the few games that I think does it well, in my opinion, is like Project Zomboid. Even then, you can still collect a lot, but you have to haul it back. But I think it'd be really fun to do, like, a zombie survival game where you can craft, but crafting is not the biggest focus, but you also aren't staying in one place for a long duration, perhaps. Pacific Drive comes to mind, except more of a focus on the survival.
Was The Long Drive sort of in that vein? I haven't played it yet. I have it, but I haven't.
The Long Drive is in the vein of Uncanny.
Okay. Okay.
where it's just kind of this silly driving game, but also there are these like zombies and killer rabbits and things, and it's just kind of weird,
funny,
and
yeah,
slightly
odd.
uncanny, but it's definitely got some creepy moments in it.
Yeah. There is unfortunately one game that I can think of that had limited crafting, but was more focused on you traveling, that had like a zombie mechanic, and unfortunately the game is Metal Gear Survive.
I heard good things about that one.
Did you?
Did I?
No, no, you didn't. No, Survive was the one that Konami made after. Who was the creator of Metal Gear? Help me out. Kojima, thank you. Hideo Kojima. When Kojima left, Konami still had Metal Gear.
Mm-hmm.
So they were like, we'll make a game where it's like a survival game. They made Metal Gear Survive, and it was I played it, and it was not good. It was not good. But it did have like limited like crafting mechanics where you could like build walls or fences, and then when the zombies that had the crystals on their heads came to your thing, you could poke them through the gates that you made as like makeshift barriers. Unfortunately, that was like the whole game. At some point, maybe we have to go back and look at that and see what happened with Metal Gear Survive, but I don't think it was anything good. I don't know about that. Thinking about Kojima, though, I mean, he did kind of make a survival crafting horror game that's sort of in that vein, which was Death Stranding, because you do actually do some crafting in that, but it really was not the focus. I think that's like, you could build bridges in that and build ladders and stuff like that in order to traverse around. And there's some kind of creepy stuff, but again, not really a horror game, not really a crafting game like you think of. But yeah, unfortunately, I think Metal Gear Survive probably the closest thing to like that kind of thing that you're talking about, and it was bad. It would be interesting to see if Resident Evil tried to do a formula like this, though. Well, I'm just thinking about it like this. Take your Resident Evil 4. Okay. And Leon Kennedy gets to the village. But you can break the buildings down, and you can create barricades and, like, walls and stuff out of it. Fortnite style. Right. When the villagers come. But the villagers are still these crazy villagers that can climb up stuff and everything. So you're trying to like quickly assemble stuff so that they don't attack you from every direction, but they're coming at you from all angles. So like,
my whole thing is like, if you're in an area and it's besieged by zombies, then why would you want to stay put?
Yeah, you don't want to keep moving around. So what?
Find a very defensible position.
Yeah. So you kind of want to do something like they did with Pacific Drive, which is where you're upgrading your car, specifically.
Except I don't want to keep, maybe you return to the base until you're ready to move to the next area kind of deal. But maybe you have multiple bases or whatever, that kind of thing.
I guess so. I just find that it's very difficult to be in a survival crafting game that also makes me, that gives me a sense of tension or fear in that same way. Because of continuously building up and learning the system and learning the world and building my giant base. I guess probably the closest thing that I've ever come to would probably be like Grounded. Because in Grounded, that is very much a survival crafting game. That's a main mechanic. And it is pretty tense when these giant-ass bugs and the spiders and stuff are coming at you. It's more annoying than anything else, but it really is, kind of in that vein. I guess if you did that, that's kind of what I was hoping Project Mist was going to achieve if they had these big monsters. None of them were big cats, though. Cat Watch 2024. I figured that if they had, like, the big monsters that could smash up your buildings, like, they would wander the landscape, they'd smash things up, and then you have to be in, like, panic mode because your whole civilization has collapsed in a matter of moments, that would be something. But, frankly, I never really got to that part because it was kind of lame. So I don't know. I feel like the two of these things are just kind of antithetical to each other.
I think you need to have a solid foundation in one side, not the other side, and then maybe add some stuff for the other side if you're going to do it right.
You know, you could probably say that you want to have some horror elements or some, you know, maybe aesthetics to it and build a survival crafting game that has that. Or you could build a horror game and then try to add in some basic crafting. But not really, I don't think by the time you get to the base building and being able to, like, custom, you know, build out the landscape and stuff, I don't know. Oh, the other one I think I played recently that was in the same vein and I also still wasn't impressed with that was Once Human. You played that a bit too.
I tried it. I didn't care for it.
Kinda has a little bit of those horror elements to it.
If it wasn't like a perpetually online MMO style game, I think it'd be better. Like if I could be like, I want to play this like 4 friends.
Yeah, or solo, like really play it solo. I think would be
solo or with a couple friends.
Tension.
Yeah, but
yeah,
I don't want to play it online with a server full of people.
I say it's like kind of a horror game and kind of survival crafting. It's also kind of like every game they could cram in at the same time. It's like a million types of games that they put together.
In theory, I liked some of the stuff they were doing.
Yeah.
Like the theming they were doing and the way they were trying to pull that off. Like SCP vibes kind of thing. It was neat.
Yeah.
But the gameplay and just the base building type aspect was not like, again, if it wasn't a server full of random people, I'd enjoy it more, but playing it with random people and having to build my base next to all these other bases that people threw up right there, it's like, not into that.
Yeah. Like, when I first picked it up, because I was like, this looks interesting, I was actually thinking, oh, this kind of reminds me a little of Control.
SCP vibes.
There's definitely elements to that, but then there's just, like, all this other stuff going on, and I was like, I like the idea of shooting, like, a mimic suitcase, like, laser beams at people. That's kind of cool, but at the same time, I'm like, I have no idea what's going on. It's just, there's so much stuff they tried to cram in there. Maybe the SCP thing might work better for survival crafting. I don't really know, like, that almost, like, you know, From Beyond sort of feeling that they're
I don't
think
it'd work well with crafting. It'd be anomaly horror.
Anomaly horror, yeah. If the anomalies could actually affect your building, that might be interesting.
I wouldn't want an SCP game where I had base building. That doesn't strike me as something that would fit.
I don't think it
very
works.
well with the theming.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, these two things are very hard to cram together. I don't feel like they work, because you're gonna have to have tons of resources for one, and you're gonna want kind of limited resources to build up tension in the other. It's just they're very antithetical to each other in terms of, like, gameplay and what the user experience is really supposed to be. But I did know when I picked up Project Mist, when I first got into it, I was gonna have some trouble, because I was like, did you literally just freaking give me a gravity gun? Literally. It doesn't even work as well as it did in Half-Life 2. It doesn't have that whole thing where it's like, ooh, these are different kinds of objects with different physics, and if I throw them, it's like, no, I pretty much have the same results for everything I throw at this damn... It's basically, can it explode or not? That's pretty much it. There's no, oh, I happened to pick up the saw blade, and the saw blade actually, like, cuts, and it goes into things. You know, like Half-Life 2, when they did that kind of thing. I'm kind of wondering, though, for folks out there, have you found a game that can actually represent horror and survival crafting in a good way, and how were they able to mesh those two ideas together? Because I'm starting to realize I don't think I really have a good example for that. that has worked, that was also enjoyable.
I mean, for you, all you gotta do is play Subnautica.
I liked Subnautica, but the thing about it is that Subnautica is either a horror game or it's a crafting game, but never the twain really mesh.
It is if you've got thalassophobia.
Well, yeah, but if you have any phobia if you have arachnophobia, Grounded is the worst game that ever existed.
Yeah, and they become horror games at that point.
Yeah, it's very specific to whatever your thing is that you don't like. But, Subnautica is one of those things, like, if you want to do the base building, that's great, but it stops becoming so much of a horror game if you're doing the base building. And then when you're out there and you're not doing the crafting thing, then it's kind of a horror game, but the crafting really isn't what you're focusing on. You kind of do one or the other. It's a good game, though. Subnautica 2 is going to be fun.